She smiled like nothing was wrong, while carrying a purse that cost more than my wedding dress. The bank alert came seconds later, and with it, the slow collapse of a truth I'd clung to my whole life. My name is Natalie. I'm 32 years old, and at the time this happened, I was recently engaged, working as a clinical research coordinator and planning the kind of wedding I never thought I'd actually get to have. Not a grand, flashy celebration, but one that felt like home. Something small, warm, meaningful. The kind of day where you can feel every word in the vows, and everyone in the room actually knows you. I had spent the better part of 5 years, saving for it, chipping away at my student loans, then slowly building up a fund for that one day I promised myself wouldn't be rushed, compromised, or done on someone else's terms. Every month, like clockwork, I moved a little into that account. Sometimes $100, sometimes more, depending on what life allowed. It wasn't just a number. It was proof of self-discipline, of hope, of choosing to believe in something lasting. I never talked about it much. It felt private, sacred, almost, like whispering it out loud would jinx it. And then, just a few weeks after finalizing the venue and dress appointments, I saw my sister Jenna strutting into brunch like she'd won the lottery. A new designer handbag, shoes that looked like they hadn't touched real pavement, and a phone case that shimmered with actual Swarovski crystals. That might not seem strange to most people, but I knew Jenna. She lived paycheck to paycheck, worked inconsistently, and had never been the type to accidentally come into money. She leaned in to hug me, all smiles, as if nothing had changed. That's when my phone buzzed in my lap. Large transfer alert, $1,800 withdrawn. From my wedding account. My stomach dropped. My first thought wasn't even theft. It was confusion. Some sort of mistake? An error? But as I watched her pick at her food, casually flipping through her phone, I knew deep down, this wasn't a mistake. This was personal, and the worst part? She didn't look guilty, not even a little. I wish I could say that moment at brunch, the purse, the alert, the realization, was the first time Jenna had done something like this. But it wasn't. It was just the first time I stopped pretending I didn't see it. Growing up, Jenna was the kind of person people noticed. Loud, dramatic, the kind of magnetic energy that drew people in even when she wasn't trying. She had this carefree, slightly reckless way of moving through the world that made her seem bold and exciting, until you were the one left picking up the pieces, and I was usually the one picking up the pieces. I'm the younger sister by 3 years, but it never felt that way. I matured early, emotionally speaking. Maybe it was because someone had to. Our parents weren't bad people. They worked hard, provided what they could, but they had blind spots. Big ones. Especially when it came to Jenna. She was their pride. Their golden child. Every mess was dismissed with a sigh, every mistake softened with, "That's just Jenna being Jenna." Meanwhile, I was the one they leaned on. "Natalie, help your sister out. Natalie, be the bigger person." Natalie, she didn't mean it. Even when I was 12 and Jenna accidentally lost the birthday money I had saved up in a purse she borrowed and left at the mall, it was brushed off like I'd made a fuss over nothing. I got used to being the understanding one, the reasonable one. It wasn't praise, it was an expectation. My role was to absorb the imbalance without complaint, so I learned how to manage. I became careful with money, careful with time, careful with people. I didn't make big scenes or bold moves. I planned, I calculated, I waited, and when I graduated and got my first stable job, I quietly started saving. At first, it was just a basic emergency fund, but somewhere along the way, after a breakup that shook me and a promotion that boosted me, I started carving out a specific account. One for the future I actually wanted. One that I would protect from chaos, even if that chaos looked like family. That account became my wedding fund. Not for a fantasy wedding, but for one that felt real and safe. One where nothing was borrowed. No drama, no guilt, no favors I'd have to repay with silence. For 5 years, I built that fund slowly, methodically. I didn't talk about it, didn't flaunt it. Jenna knew I was saving vaguely, but I never gave details. I didn't think I needed to. But of course, Jenna had always had a way of finding out the things she wanted to know. And she had always treated other people's boundaries like speed bumps, annoying, but not reasons to stop. There were smaller things looking back that I ignored, like the time she borrowed a few $100s to cover rent and never mentioned it again. Or when she used my Uber account for weeks before I realized and shut it down. Always little invasions, just small enough to excuse. And each time, my parents would step in. Not to hold her accountable, but to soften the blow. She's going through a rough time. She didn't mean to. Why are you being so harsh? I started to see that for them, keeping the peace meant keeping Jenna from facing consequences. But what no one seemed to notice was what that peace cost me. Every time I let something slide, a small piece of me disappeared into that silence. Every time I bit my tongue or nodded instead of saying how I felt, I chipped away at my own foundation. Until the only thing I had to hold on to was that account, that fund. It wasn't just about a wedding. It was about finally doing something for myself that no one could take until someone did. That moment at brunch, that casual purse swing, that casual theft. It wasn't just about the money. It was the echo of every birthday where Jenna got the bigger gift, every Christmas where I was told not to make a fuss, every apology I gave just to stop the tension. I wasn't angry when I saw that notification. I was tired. So deeply, bone deep. Tired of being the one who always understood. Because in my family, understanding had always meant giving something up. My boundaries, my voice, my peace. And this time, the cost was too high. The ride home from brunch was a blur. I don't even remember what street I turned onto or how I managed to keep the wheel steady. My phone sat face down in the passenger seat, but I could still feel it burning with that one notification. $1,800. Gone. I didn't panic, not immediately. That's not how my mind works. I'm the kind of person who double-checks receipts, who tracks every payment in spreadsheets with color-coded categories. So, the rational part of me, desperate for an explanation, wanted to believe it was a mistake. A glitch. Maybe I transferred it to the wrong place. When I got home, I opened my laptop. I went straight to the account. The money had been transferred 2 days earlier, to another account I didn't recognize at first. But as I clicked through the transaction details, a quiet unease settled in. The last 4 digits of the recipient, account, they looked familiar. I pulled up some old Venmo screenshots from years ago, when Jenna had asked me to send money directly to her bank for a deposit she couldn't make on her own. Same digits. My stomach twisted, but I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, blinking at the screen, heart thudding slower than it should have. The realization wasn't sharp. It was thick and slow, like wading through water that got heavier with every step. I checked the security logs. 2 days before the transfer, someone had logged in from an IP address not far from Jenna's apartment. And the worst part? The system hadn't flagged it because the login came from a known device. My old iPad. The one I gave her 2 years ago logged in and never wiped. My hands stayed calm as I took screenshots, opened folders, and saved PDFs of everything. Maybe part of me was still trying to prove to myself that this wasn't what it looked like. That somehow, this would end with a call to the bank and an apology from a stranger. But deep down, I knew. That money I'd protected, nurtured, and counted down to, was taken by the one person who should have known how sacred it was, to me. I waited until the next morning to call her. I didn't trust myself to speak the night before. When I finally dialed, she answered on the third ring, all brightness in her voice like nothing had happened. "Hey, Nat. What's up?" I didn't waste time. "I need to ask you something. Did you transfer money from my wedding account?" There was a pause. The kind you only notice when you're listening too closely. Then she laughed. "What? No? What are you talking about?" "I know it was you," I said, still calm. "The transfer went to your account. It was made from my old iPad. I've seen the logs." Another pause. Then something in her voice shifted. "Oh, that, like she'd stepped on my favorite plant." "I only took some of it," she said quickly. "I was in a tight spot, Nat. I figured you wouldn't even notice until later. You're not getting married tomorrow." I closed my eyes. "You took $18,000, Jenna." "Okay, yes, but I was going to pay it back. I just needed a little help. You always help. You've always got your life together." I let the silence stretch. Her voice grew defensive. "Why are you acting like this is such a big deal? It's not like I emptied the whole thing. I left you more than half." God, Nat, you're so dramatic sometimes. That word. Dramatic. She'd used it my entire life anytime I dared to set a boundary. I didn't speak. Just let her keep talking, because I think part of me wanted to hear what she would say when no one stopped her. Eventually, she sighed. "Look, just don't tell Mom and Dad, okay? I'll sort it out." But I already had. I didn't call our parents to tattle. I called because I needed someone, anyone, to acknowledge what had just happened. To validate that this wasn't okay, I should have known better. When I explained it to them, calmly, fact by fact, there was silence at first. Then the excuses started. "Jenna's under so much stress right now. She probably thought you'd be okay with it. Money comes and goes, sweetheart, but sisters are for life." The way my father said it, gently, like he was guiding a child who didn't understand, was what finally broke me. Because for once, I wasn't asking for much. I wasn't asking them to take sides. I wasn't asking them to shame her. I was just asking them to say it was wrong, but they didn't. They couldn't. Not when it came to Jenna. So I nodded, thanked them for their time, and ended the call. And then I sat on the floor beside my bed, where I'd kept my wedding binder, full of color swatches, catering ideas, and dress notes, and stared at it for a long, quiet minute. I didn't feel rage. I didn't even feel sad, not in the way I expected. What I felt was done. Done, hoping that one day someone would see the weight I'd carried. Done thinking that my sacrifices would eventually mean something. Done pretending that love without respect was enough. That moment, quiet, unspectacular, unaccompanied by tears or yelling, was when the final thread snapped, and for the first time in my life, I didn't patch it back together. I was 16 the first time I remember feeling that kind of silence. The kind that comes when you realize fairness doesn't live in your house. It was a Friday. My high school had been planning a weekend field trip to the state university, a 2-day visit for students who wanted to explore campus life, attend a few workshops, even stay overnight in dorm rooms. It wasn't just fun. It was my first real glimpse at the kind of future I'd always dreamed about, structured, quiet, my own. The cost wasn't outrageous, but it wasn't nothing either. $200. And I'd been saving for weeks. Babysitting for neighbors, tutoring a kid in algebra after school, even skipping out on my usual weekend coffee runs. I had it all stashed away in an envelope hidden inside a shoebox in my closet. That Thursday night, I pulled it out, counted it one more time, and tucked it into my backpack so I could turn it in the next day at school. The next morning, it was gone. I tore apart my room, desk drawers, closet, and backpack pockets. Nothing. I felt a cold, creeping panic that didn't rise to tears, just blankness. Then I heard Jenna laughing in the kitchen. She was 17 then, already driving, already skipping school more than she should have been. When I walked in, she was scrolling through her phone with her nails freshly done, glossy pink with little rhinestones. "Where's the envelope?" "I had in my backpack?" I asked quietly. She didn't even look up, just said, "I needed it. I'll pay you back." I stared at her. "That was for my college trip." She shrugged. "It's not like you're going tomorrow. You've still got time." She said it so casually, like borrowing $200 from a 16-year-old wasn't a big deal, like it was something people did when they needed gas money or a quick lunch. I remember standing there, stunned, while she sipped from a cup of orange juice like we were just talking about the weather. Later that night, I told our parents. Not out of anger, I just thought if they knew, they'd step in. Set things right. But when I explained it, my dad sighed and rubbed his temples. My mom didn't even stop folding laundry. "She's under a lot of stress," they said. "She said she'll pay you back," they said. "She's your sister." That phrase again. As if being related meant accountability didn't apply. I never did get to go on that trip. The money didn't come back. And by the time I admitted defeat and went to the coordinator to explain, it was too late. The bus roster was full. Jenna never apologized. And the next time she borrowed from me, different circumstance, same pattern, I stopped even bringing it up. It's strange how those moments pile up. They don't feel huge at the time. They don't burn or shatter you instantly. But they add weight to your steps, drag into your choices. You stop trusting others with your joy. You learn to make yourself small, unnoticeable, to avoid becoming the collateral damage in someone else's chaos. And slowly, you stop asking for justice. You start preparing for disappointment like it's a guest that always shows up uninvited. That stolen envelope wasn't just about a missed trip. It was about knowing that my needs would always come second. That even when I did everything right, earned it, planned it, held it close, someone could take it, and no one would stop them. So no, what Jenna did to my wedding fund didn't come out of nowhere. It was just the biggest version of a pattern I'd spent a lifetime excusing. But this time, I wasn't 16, and I wasn't going to pretend it didn't matter. I didn't talk to anyone for 2 days after the call with my parents. No one except Evan, my fiancé. We weren't the kind of couple that overshared every emotion. But when something mattered, we knew how to sit with it together. That Sunday morning, over coffee that had gone cold in our mugs, I laid everything out for him. The transfer, the login, the excuses, the silence. I expected him to be angry, but he wasn't. He was still. He listened, then took my hand and said, "Whatever you decide to do, I'll back you." That gave me more strength than he realized, because I wasn't planning revenge. I wasn't looking to destroy Jenna. What I wanted was something that had been denied to me over and over: accountability. I started by locking down everything, changed passwords, moved the remaining wedding funds into a completely new account, and pulled full statements from the past 6 months. I flagged every suspicious access point, every potential weak link. I documented it all: dates, devices, IP addresses, correspondence. Then I reached out to a financial advisor I trusted, an older woman named Nora, who I'd worked with through my job. She referred me to someone who specialized in digital theft and family disputes. He was calm and precise, and when I laid the situation out for him, he didn't flinch. "This is financial abuse," he said. "Just because it's your sister doesn't make it less serious." It was the first time someone outside my family said those words aloud. We filed a formal complaint through the bank, citing unauthorized transfer. Because Jenna had used a known device, it was a gray area legally, but procedurally it gave us leverage. It meant Jenna would be contacted, and she'd know I wasn't letting this slide. The call came a few days later. She texted me first. Just a single line. "Are you seriously doing this?" I didn't respond. She called next. I ignored it. Then the group text happened. My parents, Jenna and me. Dad. Nat, let's not escalate this. It's family. Please talk to your sister. Mom. She's... Sorry, okay? We'll help her repay it. You don't need to involve lawyers. Jenna. Wow. Over one mistake? You're cold, Nat. I read the messages 3 times before replying. Me. I'm not cold. I'm just done pretending your choices don't affect other people. I've already taken the steps I need to take. I won't undo them. Then I muted the thread. A week later, my parents asked to meet in person. I agreed on neutral ground. A quiet little coffee shop halfway between their place and mine. They tried to be gentle, but the message was clear. Drop it. Think about the family. Think about how it looked. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even let my breath catch. I just looked at them and said, if it had been a stranger who stole from me, would you ask me to forgive and forget? Or is this just about preserving the illusion that Jenna's behavior doesn't hurt people? My father looked away. My mother said nothing. I stood up, calmly slid a printed folder across the table. Inside were copies of everything, proof of the transfer, the complaint file, the statement from the advisor. I'm not asking you to take sides, I said. But I won't be talked out of protecting what I built. They didn't follow me out. I didn't expect them to. The final confrontation with Jenna happened a week later. Not planned, not dramatic. Just timing. I was dropping off some things at my parents' house, boxes of childhood stuff they kept in the attic. Jenna was there. She hadn't known I was coming. She froze when she saw me, then smirked like we were in on some private joke. You made your point, she said. No, I replied. I made my boundary. There was no audience, no fight. Just 2 sisters standing in a hallway where we'd once played hide and seek and whispered secrets we were too young to understand. I looked her in the eyes and said, this isn't about the money anymore. It's about the fact that you think nothing you do has consequences, she scoffed, but I saw it. The flicker in her expression. Not shame. Not an apology. Awareness. She knew the dynamic had changed. I wasn't playing the quiet sister anymore. I wasn't going to bend just to keep things comfortable. I wasn't going to protect her from the impact of her choices. She didn't say sorry. She didn't ask for forgiveness. But she didn't argue either. She just walked away. And as she turned the corner, I caught something in her face, brief and subtle. Like the realization that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't untouchable after all. Whether she ever paid back the money didn't matter. Not to me. I had already taken something more important back. My voice, my line in the sand, my sense of self-worth. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation. After everything, I didn't cancel the wedding, but I did change it. We scaled it down, not out of bitterness, but because it felt right. The guest list was cut in half. No ballroom, no crystal chandeliers, no overly dramatic floral arches, just a little garden outside the city, tables with mismatched chairs, simple food, real music, and only people who had shown up when it mattered. I walked down the aisle in a dress I picked without second-guessing. My dad wasn't the one to walk me down. I chose my godmother instead, a quiet woman who had taught me how to love without strings. Evan was waiting at the altar, looking at me like I was enough just as I was, not because I had held anything together, but because I had finally let go. The day didn't look like the Pinterest boards I had built years before, but it felt like home. Jenna didn't come. She wasn't invited. Neither were my parents, and that decision didn't come from a place of revenge, it came from peace. I didn't need to perform the part of the peacemaker anymore. I didn't owe anyone a seat at a table they had never helped set. In the months that followed, I thought a lot about forgiveness. Everyone talks about it like it's a final destination, like if you don't arrive there, you're still stuck in the storm. But what no one tells you is that sometimes not forgiving, for now, or maybe forever, isn't the same as staying bitter. It's just choosing not to carry something that doesn't belong to you anymore. I didn't hate Jenna, but I didn't trust her, and I didn't miss the version of me that always had to shrink for her to shine. I started taking long walks again. I read books that had been sitting unread for years. I picked up journaling, not for productivity, but to hear my own thoughts clearly again. I laughed more at silly shows, at awkward memories, at myself. There was one moment that sticks with me. A few weeks after the wedding, I sat on our back porch with a cup of coffee staring at the sunrise. Evan had left early for a run, and the world was still quiet. The cup had gone cold by the time I looked down and realized I hadn't touched it. And for once, I didn't feel wasteful. I felt still. Still in a way that didn't mean stuck. Still, like peace. People always say you'll feel better when justice is served, but what I felt wasn't justice. It was something softer, quieter, a loosening. Like taking off shoes that never fit right, and finally walking barefoot on ground that felt familiar. I had thought reclaiming the money would make me feel strong, but it wasn't the money I needed. It was the ability to say, no. To say, that's enough. To say, I matter too. In the end, Jenna's face when she realized I wasn't going to fold. Yes, it was something. But the real turning point wasn't in her expression. It was mine. In the mirror. In the way I finally looked at myself not as the background character in her story, but as the author of my own. People didn't understand at first. Some still don't. Family friends asked why I wasn't letting it go. A cousin sent me a long message about how family is everything. I didn't reply, because what they didn't know was that I hadn't lost family. I'd lost the illusion of it. And what I gained was worth far more than the $1,800 Jenna took. I gained self-respect, boundaries, rest,